to start or no?
You got this.
Okay. So, today we're going to be talking about the satire in the book of Huckleberry Finn and why it's relevant in the chapters of 27 through 29, which was our project. So, yeah. So, before we get into the chapters, I just wanted to say that Google defined satire as the use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize people's stupidity or vices, particularly in the context of contemporary politics and other topical issues. So, during chapter 27, it is set in the Wilkes' house. Most of the chapter is set in the room where the coffin is or where the Duke and the King are staying. Mark Twain uses satire through Huck's voice to show his own opinion on certain things throughout the book. In this chapter, he uses satire to describe the funeral of Peter Wilkes. Even though the scene is about death, he adds an unexpected humor into the storyline. So, the undertaker actually stopped the funeral to go see what was going on with the dog and the rat, and when he came back, he told everyone that the dog had caught the rat, which is interesting how he put it in such an irrelevant place in the story, because it was during the scene of a funeral, which is normally not something an author would do. Throughout the rest of the chapter, Twain amuses the idea of royalty and the standards of the king and the duke, who are willing to do anything for money and power while they are being represented as criminals. The satire that Mark Twain uses goes along with the vices during the time he was alive. He had a ton of experience because of all the different places he traveled and people he met. Having all this background made it easier to write with some of his novels, including this book, Huckleberry Finn. As we know, it has been a banned book in many places because it denounces the society that he lived in and used language that people actually use, which is now seen as unjust and cruel. Mark Twain used a 12-year-old boy named Huck Finn to voice his opinion on the society that was so judgmental and cruel. Even just by naming the two conmen, the king and the duke, he was satirizing political leaders in general. Throughout the story, it was quickly understood that the king and the duke are liars and unjust people. The book was written after the Union had just gone through the Civil War, where slavery was obviously a huge issue at the time. Mark Twain's father owned slaves as he was growing up, and he always thought that that was wrong. He did not like how one race was supreme over another. In order to put that into the book, he used Huck's father figure and black man, Jim, and Huck himself to ridicule slavery and make people understand how poorly slaves were treated.
Alright. The Duke and King are a pair of con men who Huck and Jim rescue as they are being run out of a river town. The older man, who appears to be about 70, claims to be the king, the son of King Louis, and heir to the French throne. Background information about slavery. Slavery was still popular during this time, despite most colored people having freedom. It was still the time where you would recapture slaves and put them back into slavery. And why did Mark Twain use them in the book? Mark Twain used the Duke and King in the book to create a plot and to represent how frauds were back in the day. Alright. Okay.
Chapter 28.
Yeah. The plan is Mary Jane goes for the night to stay with Mr. Lothrop because the girls do not have a poker face. She wouldn't be able to hide her emotions from the Duke and King. That's very important. Huck says Jim's life is hanging in a balance, so he needs time to escape before the situation plays out. Later that night, Mary is going to sneak back to the house and shine a candle in the window. If Huck doesn't show up, he's escaped and can blow the whistle all she wants on the two frauds. Huck then takes a piece of paper and writes down Royal Nonsuch Bricksville, so the Duke and King can pay their dues for that little scam as well. He also writes a note about the money being buried in the coffin and tells her not to look at the paper until she's already on the road to Mr. Lothrop's. Yeah, what?
Sorry.
So Mary Jane is off and Huck runs into Susan. He doesn't want to trust someone else with the details. In the end, he makes sure Susan isn't going to say anything to the Duke and King about her sister's absence, since she doesn't want to delay their trip to England with their uncles while everyone sticks around to see if Mary Jane contracted mumps. And then 2 men show up, the real brothers of dead Peter Wilkes.
Okay, so the Duke and Dauphine claim that they were the actual Wilkes brothers, and then the 2 actual brothers, William and Harvey, as well as the Duke and Dauphine, are questioned by Dr. Robinson in a tavern. This was to determine who the actual brothers were.
Mm-hmm.
So the Duke and Dauphine and Harvey all sign their names, which are compared to the real signatures. The Dauphine then convinces the crowd that the Duke is disguising his handwriting, and also convinces them that Harvey's handwriting was forged by his brother. Then Harvey asks Dauphine about the tattoo on his brother's chest, and they both say it is 2 different things. And then it is revealed that there is actually no tattoo on his chest, and the crowd is angry and demands the 4 to be lynched. They go to the grave the entire crowd goes to the grave to see whether or not the tattoo was there. What are you doing?
Trying to make this video interesting.
And when they get to the grave, they open the coffin, and there's $6,000 worth of gold in there, and the crowd goes crazy, and then Huck returns safely to the raft, and yeah, he's happy
The
about
investigation of who is the real Wilkes brother is satire, because instead of the townspeople trying to end the out of control stupid investigation, they go along with it and actually end up enjoying the confusion. Mark Twain is making fun of how ignorant the Southerners are because they try to stop the investigation instead of enjoying it. The crowd wanting to lynch all 4 of the accused is satire, because the Duke and King were able to escape on lynching before and escape by most likely conning their way out of it. This is Twain making fun of foolishness of the Southerners and how wimpy they are, as they would never actually lynch anyone. You just gotta say.